Hello and welcome everyone for another engaging episode here at CIO Talk with Riaz. This is Riaz Yusuf. I am a Chief Information Officer and your host. I am thrilled to interview our guest with us today, Sanjog Aul, who is an entrepreneur, talk show host, author, and philanthropist. The reason I'm very excited is because Sanjog regularly talks to several executives, IT leaders, and I believe he has a broad understanding of the IT landscape, past, present, and future. I'm super excited and looking forward to the discussion with Sanjog today. Without further ado, I'd like to bring Sanjog to the stage. Welcome, Sanjog. Thank you for joining us today.
Well, the pleasure is all mine. Thanks for having me.
Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself for the benefit of my audience?
Well, so again, as you said, my name is Sanjog Aul. I am an individual who has been aspiring to create as much impact as possible. So to that end, what I've tried to do is to build some organizations which I believe are today and will continue to create impact. One of that is CIO Talk Network, which is essentially a thought leadership media outlet which features topmost enterprise technology executives from around the world who are primarily CXOs, and as well as the business counterparts as the topic demands. And this is available and consumed. This content and all that what we produce is consumed in over 110 countries. It's a thought leadership media outlet. So that's one. Then secondly, it's a movement, essentially more than a business, which is supposed to create impact by people, for people, by helping them look within for happiness. And that is the Tricycle Way. It is based on a book that I authored a couple of years ago. So we are to launch that platform soon, and hopefully that will help us increase the impact on a personal level, while CIO Talk Network is helping technology leaders improve themselves and get some more knowledge and insights for their professional growth.
Wonderful.
That's how I would define. That's what my life is, at least the professional life is.
That's great. You're making a change and impact in the not only in the industry and also the lives of those leaders. That's great. Could you, since you're talking to IT leaders on a regular basis, I'm curious to know what are some of the themes that you are observing in your recent conversations with IT leaders. As we all know, since pandemic, things have changed so much in the last couple of years. So what are some of the things that you're observing, whether it could be things that are changing, going to be changing soon, or the things that could be challenging, common theme in regards to challenge or changes coming in most organizations?
So while, of course, IT leaders, they dabble in a lot of technology areas, and they are asked by the business leaders always to somehow produce value, somehow produce ROI from the IT. But then lately, as the trend has changed where IT has become the very DNA for most organizations, so it's the conversation has changed to say, hey, can you guys lead us versus us leading you, which means business asking technology folks to lead them so as to they can find or perhaps get them to uncover some opportunities, and not only just uncover, help them realize it. That is one from a business perspective. More CIOs and more IT leaders are essentially looking at them becoming the protagonists, the leaders who essentially take and help lead the business forward. That's one. Now, in order for them to do that, right, that's an ask from the management, and it's not a black box, but still they are taking the responsibility. But to that end, they're also recognizing that technologies, new or old, or the ones that they're dealing with, or they will put tomorrow, they will all keep changing. But the one fundamental thing, which is what they have to peg on, is the people side of things. Of course, the processes you can tinker only so much. Technologies, new and old, all of that we have seen, it keeps changing. So the things which they have to really focus is to humanize IT, which means you look at one person at a time who's a business user, look at one person at a time who's an IT staff, and one person at a time who's a business unit leader or a manager within IT or outside of IT, and help them work on themselves with the organization supporting them so that they are intrinsically motivated to create value. They're intrinsically motivated to look at technology as an enabler and an accelerator, both, so that they are looking at technology enablement in such a way so that it is value creating versus a cool tool. And they start connecting any and everything, whether it's an investment in technology or you spend time in learning about it, not as a way to get their promotion, but essentially how it will help them create even increasingly more value for the business so the company grows. So it's an individual and a collective movement which has started and has to start. Where it has not started, it has to start for eventually whatever the newer technologies or new computing paradigms that come, they actually start creating value on the ground. So ROI is at least realized. Otherwise, tech for the sake of tech has never helped anyone.
Absolutely. I love your phrase, humanizing IT. Well, that's wonderful. Because at the leadership level, although we are technology leaders, it comes down to the human factor, right? Without that human factor, we can't accomplish anything just with technology. So speaking of humanizing IT, if you were to break down how a leader could go about humanizing their IT division or department, do you have any input along?
I would say anytime when you want to bring a change, you have to become the change, right? Which means you have to fundamentally, as all leaders, strip off your title. And or think that if you strip off that title of a CIO, would people still be willing to follow you? That one question or that one reflection will tell you that are you doing anything in terms of throwing your weight around because you have that title? Or you're truly a student of leadership? And are you truly practicing those core principles of leadership? That is one. Second, when we look at an individual who's working within IT or maybe the business user who uses IT, both of them, they are essentially trying to seek their own fulfillment, their own happiness, which means their own success, professionally and personally, their own satisfaction and their own smiles. Well, when you look at IT, we look at everyone, whether a person who's within the IT department or a business, we look at them as a resource. Resource as a word is a bad word in this context because a resource you try to maximize utilization without thinking about what happens to that resource. So essentially, if you have to humanize IT, you have to actually look at the word human in the humanize and allow that individual in IT, for example, every day when they come in, are you just getting them to do projects or you're also trying to find out their aspirations and actually give them the kind of projects they want so that their own aspirations are met? The only reason people keep giving outside extrinsic motivation like more money or more vacation and a foosball table is because perhaps the focus hasn't been enough on intrinsic motivation, which is to give them what they want. When they come in the office, what did you do by the time they end their day? So they feel fulfilled, they feel they professionally grew, they are going in the right direction in terms of their career. If you do that, you frankly would not need a manager.
True. True.
So if you're saying humanize, then it's not a lip service, it's not corporate speak. It is a fundamental shift in the mindset. And also we have to put our money and effort where the mind, where our mouth is, and actually work on it consciously. So CIO is supposed to just think about a vision, perhaps work in the strategy, and the rest of the time they should look at making sure each person in their organization is able to find their own success, satisfaction, and smiles, their own fulfillment, their own joy. If you do that, I don't think so. We will have to have those conversations where we are still trying to figure out what on earth is going to happen tomorrow, who's going to stay, who's going to go.
Got it. As we know, most corporations focus on increasing profit. So their bottom line is increasing the revenue, cutting the expenses, increasing the profit. If an organization is trying to make the shift that you are suggesting for the longer term benefits, are they going to see a short-term downfall with that? I'm sure their expenses will increase when they're investing on people. So what kind of immediate impact that an organization should be prepared while they're embracing this change?
See, if you spend $1 today, you don't mind it. If you suddenly are asked to spend $100, you will notice. Which means you don't have to eat this whole elephant in one time, eat one bite at a time. Which means when you are going to start this journey, you might start with a core group of people who are at least willing to work on themselves. Like, when I coach a lot of people, so I first ask them, are you willing to work on yourself? And or you see the science whether even if I give them all the tips in the world, if they will be willing to adopt them and actually do the hard work themselves. So that is how you purposely first say, okay, we are going to get this started, but we'll take a core group of people who have that fire in them so that they work on themselves. And then you take them, show them what working on themselves means, and how when we work with them as HR, as IT, and other business leaders to help them get their success, satisfaction, and smiles, what does that do to the outcome? Frankly, the only reason the top level leadership doesn't give or doesn't fund easily any of these initiatives or support and sponsorship is because they're skeptical. And in order for you to create a proof point, you have to start small, take the people who are most interested, and they show that they will create the likelihood of the best outcome possible and start there. So when that is equivalent to you spending $1, management will not have a problem spending $1 with that smaller group. And when you show the results, because you started with the highest probability group, your chances of getting success in that area and satisfaction and smiles among those people will be very high.
Yep.
And thereafter, you will see subsequent incremental growth. And that is how any change management is supposed to happen. So what I'm telling you about humanizing IT is nothing different. It's another change management initiative. So the same principles apply. Only thing here is you have to let go of that business agenda for that core group for a little bit of time. And when you see that they are not really impacting your business agenda a whole lot, it's almost like a bimodal approach.
Yeah.
This group to focus on working on themselves, and as a result of see what outcome comes. And the second, business as usual, is anyway running. So nobody will have a problem doing that way. And that's how you would start. And once you create proof points, frankly, nobody has to look back.
Absolutely. Yeah, you are right. I love this resonates with the analogy of Jim Collins in his Good to Great book. He talks about the flywheel analogy. Initially, you have to put in more effort to spin the flywheel, but once you put in the effort and once it's in its momentum, then afterwards the effort will become less and the ROI increases as the time progresses. That's wonderful. So Sanjog, correct me if I'm wrong. It's my understanding that you also coach IT leaders, right? That's part of what you do.
Yeah, it naturally happens because we've been around the block, roughly around 30 years in technology, interviewed over 1,000, 2,000, like 12,000, 1,200 people or so at CXO level. I'm blessed to have so many feeders coming in. So a lot of people will say, hey, I want to become a CIO or I want to grow in my career. Since I understand the semantics, since I have the current feed from the real world practitioners on what truly they are having as challenges, what are the opportunities, what did they do to get to where they want to, and now what are they facing in front of them. So when you have the upwards, downward, sideways kind of view, I try to bring that to people, but alongside that tech view or tech industry analyst view, I'm also continuing to pull people to their human side. Like I'm telling the organizations to do humanization. Similarly, I say before you become a CIO, you become a better human, a better giver, a better leader before you say, I want to become a CIO, because otherwise you will become yet another set of people who don't create value, and eventually you will have a short-term career. Either you'll not get there or you'll have a short-term career as a leader. So start at the very basic, look at yourself, see how good of a human you are, how caring you are, how much do you really try to understand what the problems is, what the landscape are, and when you look at solving it, are you self-centered or you're putting the center on the business value you're creating and also on the people who you're leading? That's what a CIO is supposed to do.
Yes.
If you put this out and then make them write down things and perhaps ask them questions, that leads for most of them to say, oh, wow, I did not even think it that way. I said, since you've not reached there, you have to change your thinking for you to change your career. My goal is to provoke thought. And
Got it.
frankly, I don't have the answers. They already have answers. It's just that I have to ask those intelligent questions, hopefully, which will make them think, reflect well, and change the course. So
Got it.
that's
You
what
just
my
help
job
them
is.
to find the answers that they already have, but don't realize it. Okay. So my channel and podcast is focused on helping growing IT leaders. So my next question for you is, if I were to coach someone to become a successful IT leader, what are some of the things that you would suggest me or any IT leader for the case to focus on to develop successful next generation IT leaders?
So when we say a next generation IT leader, so let's define what that next generation looks like, right? In terms of not the human side, but also the environment that they will be living in.
Hmm.
We know technology is going to be pervasive. You got AI that everybody is talking about. It's going to play a role.
Yep.
Then the tendency of more and more people who are looking to find value, they are not lifers. They are not going to be able to attract or retain people just because they throw money at them.
Hmm.
You will not see them getting retained just because you throw money at them or just use some cool techniques. You'll have to figure out how to get them to work at their optimum potential in this relatively fast-paced, volatile, uncertain environment. So when I define it, it is with a reason. Why? Because uncertainty, volatility, rapid change, and looking at the life and not just work, or life plus work as a balance, is becoming the norm.
Got it.
Second, if they had to ever become a leader, they need to have people automatically, they have to have followers for them to become a leader. Yes, you can become a self leader, but for a leader to be a leader, they have to have people follow. For
Absolutely.
them to follow you, you got to be able to show them a dream, a clear vision to achieve that dream, and let that dream be non monetary. Let
Sure.
that be a higher purpose, a higher impact.
Mhm.
And for that, they themselves have to believe in it. Can't fake, a leader cannot fake a dream, cannot fake passion, or should not fake dream, fake passion, fake impact, and thereby in themselves. Because otherwise, their actions will give it away in due course. When the pressure hits, they will suddenly say, okay, I'm not thinking about this vision, let me save my job. And those people will have very limited followers, or even if they had a few, they will all walk away.
Absolutely. You are spot on. If someone is focused just on monetary benefits, that's a truly short-term goal, and they won't last very long as a successful leader. Like you said, they for sure wouldn't have much followers. If there are any, they would be gone pretty quickly. You mentioned AI. That reminds me something. AI, as we all know, is the buzzword in the industry today. What are your thoughts around AI, and where do you think IT will be shaping up in the next few years in the direction of AI?
See, AI is first of all, it is assisting intelligence, right? Or augmenting intelligence versus artificial intelligence. So we have to redefine that. It is by design coming to help you versus take over. Second, with that fear out of the way, if you can let go of that fear that is going to take your job away or something similar is going to happen, then you start seeing that if you had to hire an assistant, if you had to hire even your cabinet member, like if you're an IT leader, you got VPs. Imagine AI was one of your VPs. What would it fill? What role would it fill? Don't use it as an executive assistant. Look at it as almost like in a business. In fact, somebody actually told me that there are some companies who have one of the board members as an AI bot.
Interesting.
Because what they are saying is the kind of capability AI brings is to take human intelligence, a variety of it, and aggregate it and use that at the same time at a much faster pace to process a lot more data to help build decision making. And isn't that what exactly a board is supposed to do?
Wow, very interesting concept. Okay.
So if we are going to look at them, perhaps not every AI bot will reach every board, but what IT leaders could do, and alongside business leaders could be supported and or evangelized to that use AI as not a tool because it has far more power than a tool. Start finding it, finding use cases. Don't look at AI and don't get enamored. Find specific use cases where the core strength of AI can be exploited in the current use case. Then which use cases which you have not been able to realize yet, identify, perhaps do some blue ocean thinking that what if this use case which was not even possible for us to tackle, can it somehow be tackled using AI?
Okay.
So introduce AI into your, everybody has a bucket in mental buckets, right? One
Yep.
is you're doing work with yourself. One is you're doing something with others. One is where you are doing work on yourself.
Yep.
So in all of these three buckets, where all can AI support you? And in the organizational context, you can convert that to a use case. Which use case do we have today, which is working amazingly well, but well, there is a potential if I could use AI to further improve it. Which ones I have started working on, but it can accelerate my journey and reduce my time to value. Where can AI play a role? Where we can fundamentally rethink the business model, the way we serve our customers, the way we generate revenue, the way we engage with people. That's blue ocean thinking, right? And say, what if?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And that's where AI will truly be creating value. Otherwise, it's going to lie flat and it's going to become what RPA became, which is just, okay, automation, I've done 2 use cases, then what?
Yeah. Got it. Okay. So that's what you're suggesting. So do you think AI is going to take more of technology landscape in the near future?
Well, it is already doing so, in my view, rightfully so. If you keep the fear of job loss or fear of us becoming redundant away,
Hmm.
any progressive company is using it to the hilt. It still has some ethical concerns, it still has some biases in those kind of areas which we have to work out. They still have that fear about it becoming sentient, it has its own intelligence, it's going to take over. So that's why I'm saying fear, uncertainty, and doubt, if you can remove from that equation, then you will see AI actually playing a key role and essentially get embedded in the DNA of workings of an organization. So how they think, how they speak, how they act, how they create opportunities for themselves, how do they tackle a challenge that is in front of them or what's coming ahead of the curve, how do they prepare themselves. If you take all of those dimensions, AI has a role to play and can potentially play a role depending on how open you keep your mind.
Sure, got it. Okay, there is going to be a component of trial and error here, right? Because not all AI solution is mature enough. So there is going to be some trial and error, which I believe leaders should be open to it.
I could just take AI as a very intelligent, non complaining assistant I have who's willing to be exploited in the right way or bad way based on what we want it to do. So if you consider that as a true friend, which is there for you, I think that mindset will help you do a lot better with AI versus an adversary approach or thinking that it's an adversary.
Got it. Okay, that's great. That's very true as well. Let's talk about your journey a little bit, if that's okay with you,
Sure.
in terms of your career. Um, Tell me what led you to where you are. I know you started in IT, in one of the IT positions, but then now you are doing much broader, impactful work, helping leaders to think things differently and dig into themselves, find answers and stuff. So tell us more about how you got to where you are today.
So see, I started as a programmer back in 95, or rather 92. Wow, it's like 31 years now, right? But then over time, as I was working as a programmer, went up the ranks, did project management, team leadership, strategy stuff, all of that as it was going on. I somehow felt that people at the top in the technology sphere, especially, are a little lonely.
Hmm.
And if I could somehow create a forum where they are made to think, keep them spontaneous, have them talk about topics which are less discussed topics, the nuances, the things which are in the nooks and corners. And these are the people who are primarily practitioners. So they're, I mean, while we have had academics on our show as well, but if they were more practitioners,
Hmm.
if we could get them to speak on the real issues that they face, the trials and tribulations, and if something is so new that it has not been tested, at that point, we bring the industry analysts and academics, for example, because we want them also to weigh in. It's nobody's going to do this alone. But eventually, coming back to if it has to be used and it has been used or tested, we want to have those things shared by these individuals through stories versus simple talk, no corporate speak.
Hmm.
So that became the genesis of what CIO Talk Network became. And till today, whether we do events or we have people blog with us, do podcasts with us, do webinars with us, any form of contribution that happens on our forum today, and the way we run what we do today, it is based on that premise that if we are able to inspire positive change by provoking thought in the minds of the business and technology managers, directors, VPs, CXOs by talking to the top level leadership from around the world, we are contributing to their widening their horizons, getting some other viewpoints which could help them positively influence their thinking. They get some validation for their ideas, get some new ideas, and prevent some expensive mistakes. And I feel that is a good measure of the impact one could create through any initiative. So that is our measure.
Okay, that sounds like a great mission. That's great.
Yes. And that is what driven us, right? So that is what has been happening till date. And of course, when I wrote my book, which is on the personal side, which happened because while building this, I also lost a lot on the personal side, which I did not want anyone to repeat. So I wrote a book, and then we are building that into a framework, which I'm going to talk about separately. But I wanted to say that still trying to be a good human, still trying to create value. I found that technology leaders are my tribe who I need to serve. And I'm finding or trying to find different ways in which, if I can serve them and help them in achieving their missions, their dreams, their hopes and desires, well, that's my reward.
Got it. Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you, Sanjog. Uh, talk about your book and the new YouTube channel that you're working on. Before we get there, I have a couple of questions. What's your opinion on academic credentials in IT? This is not a new thing. In IT, academic credentials don't matter much for most positions. And do you think that is the right approach for IT? And along with that, what's your opinion on whether or not this is going to change in the near future?
See, when you look at a tool or a skill which can somebody watch a channel or go to a course and learn and do something on the job, that is when you keep a mindset that this person is just about to go lay bricks without having an idea about which castle they're building.
Mhm.
The reason I personally favor having a person getting proper education is not for the curriculum, more importantly, it is more about the way they learn how to learn, the way they learn how to apply, the way they learn how to look at different possibilities and objectively
Mhm.
make decisions or carry themselves forward or improvise as they need.
Mhm.
And going forward, whether it is technology, yes, there will be programming that is happening, but guess what? AI is coming, so you'll have more programming happening through AI. So if you think the percentage of jobs which will be required in technology will require them to interface well with humans, they will require for them to solve business problems or social problems or other problems, which requires them to be aware, which requires them to be problem solvers, which requires them to be analytical. And that muscle needs to be flexed, needs to be trained. And I believe that is where even technology courses which are being taught in colleges or academia, how they're shaping their education, they got to help build those muscles because tech will take care of itself to some extent.
Got it. Okay, it's no longer teaching the syntax of a programming language. That shouldn't be the focus in the technology curriculum.
So thing is this, when we talk to, I've done quite a few sessions with college students. They are stuck thinking that my life is about cranking out code without thinking what value will it create. And that itself is a very wrong foundation for an IT professional who starts their career or grows up all the way to the leadership, or potentially, if at all, they can get to that leadership, that as long as I'm doing IT and I'm following a predefined rule book, I'm okay. But frankly, IT among all different departments is the most, it has the most variability, it has the most volatility, and it will require them to stretch your brains in all different directions much more than any other department. So what we have to teach them is to become flexible, for them to be able to think outside of the box, or for that matter, throw the box away and think fundamentally in the first principle level. And that is the kind of IT professional will have the potential to, number one, create a lot of impact. And the value that they create is going to be directly proportional to the growth they see in that career.
Got it. I can't agree more. My next question is regarding influencing the board as an IT leader. Do you have any suggestions for executive level leaders who interact with the board, and how do we influence the board in getting their buy-ins for the change that we are looking to change, whether it's implementing an AI solution or incorporating some security measures or whatever it could be? How do we get the board's buy-in?
So if you think about board, whenever we are trying to influence someone, right, the first thing is to sit in their shoes. They made an investment in IT leader, in the IT team. But that was done to achieve an outcome, which could be a business outcome, but at the same time, they also realize that they need to look at greener pastures. They have to be able to pivot when there is an instability. They have to become resilient. All of those are business outcomes or business capability they want to develop, which means an IT leader who has to go in there. I'll literally give you a recipe if that helps you.
Sure.
You try to become the leader, him or herself, should try to become an idea person who takes a pitch. Say 5 pitches, not even one. Go every quarter with those 5 pitches where you will create almost a deck which says, as if you were going to a VC, venture capitalist, and present to them 5 unique ways in which you can bring material outcome for the business using a different way of doing things or a fundamentally new way of doing things.
Sure.
And every quarter you meet with them and pitch to them those 5 ideas. And it's okay for those people to rip it apart and eventually pick one. And when you get that one, you bring that back and present it to the team and get them to buy into that, okay, if this is what we are doing and this is what the business has said, let's execute on it. And when they start executing on it, their job is not to then again get deeper into the execution. That's where you build your team in advance of the people who can take your vision and run with it. And you go back for the next quarterly meeting where you have to come up with those 5 ideas, create proof of concepts, or do whatever so that your next 5 ideas are available for them to chew on. So now what you've changed is from someone going and asking for money to keep the lights on, Instead of that, you have now converted yourself into someone who's an entrepreneur,
Yeah.
who's going every quarter
Hmm.
and giving them 5 ways to double, triple, quadruple their money or the company's revenue.
Sure.
So they start looking forward to it. So at no point you come as a cost. You always say, what I'm presenting to you is a cost of doing business.
Sure.
So you get two things. Once, because the way you presented and it was an opportunity, and after they vet it, they will fund it. Second, which is very important, it changes the perception of what IT stands for, what IT leader stands for, what this department stands for.
Yep.
And soon you are seen as a growth accelerator department versus a cost sucking department.
Very true. It's historically how IT is viewed, right? As an expense versus revenue department. That's
Right.
great. I'm just curious why five initiatives? What's the reason behind the magic number five?
You could go 3, you could go 5. I look at the probability that every 20% of your ideas might get picked up. If you get 2, you are lucky. If you get 3, you should be ecstatic.
I see. Okay.
And that's why your 1 quarter is being spent in those 5 ideas, because you have to give them a shape. You have to do your due diligence. And your goal should be that they pick up not just 1, maybe 3. You should strive for 3, because the more ideas they start picking up, you're actually accelerating your perception building, that you create value. Plus, once you get those projects going and each of them start working out the way you said they will work out, you will start seeing IT as a true growth accelerator where proof is in the pudding. You're actually seeing some value coming.
Very
So
true.
if I were to dwindle, it's like sales funnel, right? You got
Yep.
5 ideas, 3 got funded, at least 1 started creating practical value for them. Because
Okay.
till they don't see value, they will not look at the next 5 ideas.
Very true. Very true. Okay. Wonderful. Let's talk about Tricycle Way and your book. Tell us about the title of the book and what is it about?
Well, so Tricycle Way is essentially a way of life. It's a way of thinking.
Mhm.
So if you recall, I was talking about success, satisfaction, and smiles, right?
Yep.
So most of us who are chasing success all day long, they're essentially sitting like a joker on a unicycle, wobbly, not as stable. Plus, they're not truly enjoying the ride. They are perhaps making other people laugh, but they are nervous. They do not know when they're going to fall next. I'm
Yeah.
just trying to draw parallels so you can relate to it.
Sure.
But then that is what most people who are chasing success are focusing on. And it's not sometimes we want to, but the life from the back pushes us because we made those choices that the only thing I want to focus on is success.
Hmm.
But what if you had satisfaction and smiles which become your daily goals to achieve them? Because success itself is a milestone, right?
Absolutely.
Once you get one, you go and chase another. So if you had these two, so imagine if you had every day smile on your face, peace in your heart, and you are then moving from one milestone to another. Now you have stability and the ride will be very cool. Otherwise, you will be moving like a hollow-eyed monster from one milestone to another.
Got it.
And these 3 wheels become the 3 wheels of a tricycle. So that is where the genesis was. And then what we did was I personally went ahead and worked on this book for 3 years, 12 months to write it, 18 months to make it simple for people to understand and adopt,
Mm.
where each part of the tricycle is mapped to internal attributes, attitudes, and actions of a human. And if you start learning about them, there are interconnections between them, then there is dependencies of one on the other, and eventually if you follow that tricycle way where you work on the different stages for each of those elements,
Mhm.
you are essentially healing yourself from within. There is nothing you are doing outside, you're actually looking within and fixing those things which are within you. And imagine if you start fixing things within you like homeopathy medicine, the outside world changes, and what you start moving towards is that happiness, which is a mix of success, satisfaction, and smiles. So it's easier to write that as a book. Yeah. Not that easy, but yeah, it racked my brain. But yes, eventually the book came out, and that's awesome. But there are a lot of books written with different frameworks. But what good it is going to do if it is not adopted properly?
Correct.
So then we got psychologists, instructional designers, content people, everything to create a way to get this adopted by a larger set of people around the world. Imagine you look at currently, those Gallup surveys and others to say how great a company is, best way to work, etc.
Right.
What if this Tricycle Way framework, and that's how it's going to be, besides we going to individuals, we're also going to companies and say, hey, get your people to work on themselves.
Okay.
And once they work on themselves, culture will take care of itself. Retention, productivity, and all other things that you're trying to work on, yes, there will be some external help required, but if a person is hell-bent on making their life the best it can be, it will automatically impact on what the organization achieves. And if their collective scores of their own happiness score for all the elements that they work on, imagine that automatically calculates the happiness score of a company.
Got it.
And since it's an objective measure around the world, if you had any company which has got Tricycle Way adopted by their people and that automatically calculates a score, then company doesn't have to do a make believe on how much are they working on a company of like people's happiness. It's going to be an objective measure. And if a company has a good enough objective measure of that happiness score, imagine what will that do to attracting and retaining talent and helping them become the best they can be. So if you think all of this, what I just said, on one hand, we talk about IT creating value, business creating value. And when I mention about humanizing IT and humanizing business, well, when you do humanizing, how will you change the DNA or help that individual work on their DNA so that collectively they will able to create the value as individual humans and as a group of humans if you did not have this mechanism. So I'm trying to connect the dots for you that if
Sure.
each human works on themselves as an individual, as a team leader, as a manager, as a leader,
Mhm.
as a board member, then the outcome takes care of itself. What we have been doing it, we are looking at every problem outside in, above the skin. We are teaching them how to become confident, how to speak well. Well, all of that actually talent is within you, but you've been marred by lack of understanding on what it makes for you to be confident. And you're not confident because something within you is shaking you.
True. Okay. Yeah. There is this a culture of longing for acceptance from others, right? We want to say what people want to hear. We want to do what people want to see. So basically, we are acting to some extent in getting
Yeah, so
some
that's low
acceptance.
self-esteem. That could have so many things that are coming from your the way you grew up, etc. But
Right.
you can let that person work on themselves.
Mhm.
And once they work on themselves and get this thing going, all of those signs go away.
True. True. Okay, that's great. So remind me what those three cycle, the three wheels of tricycle. What do they represent again?
So success,
Yeah,
satisfaction, and smiles.
got it. So three S's.
Yes.
Wonderful.
And then there are a whole lot of other elements which are different, like you got a frame, you got a handlebar,
Hmm. Okay,
you got pedals, you got
that's your
tires, you got
framework basically.
spokes. So the whole everything is connected. It is very cerebral framework, but once you understand it, and if you every morning and every evening just you say, "How's my tricycle?" You'll be surprised how quickly will you be able to envision where you need to work, and you start getting to work on it.
Got it. Well, in a way, your book is not just talking to IT leaders. It's
Oh,
overall.
it is a mass appeal, absolutely.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm seeing that anyone who is following CTN or is known to me, they can benefit from Tricycle Way. And before you're an IT leader, if you remember, I said before you're a good IT leader, you have to become good human first. So this is my submission to the rest of the world to look within themselves to find happiness, which will in turn heal them, and
Yeah,
that will prepare them with all things they need to be a great leader.
got it. Okay, that's great. What's the full title of your book, Sanjog?
It is The Tricycle Way. You can find it on Amazon.
It's on Amazon. Perfect, perfect. Okay, wonderful. Could you talk a little bit about your YouTube channel that you're starting? I know you already have one for your CTO talk, right?
Yeah, so we've been mostly doing audio podcasts to be very frank, but we are starting the video side of it because frankly, I just have to turn on the video. When we started back in 2003, the bandwidth wasn't available. And we talked to literally the highest level of technology leaders and business leaders from around the world. Sometimes they're at an airport or wherever. So
Sure.
doing video becomes tougher. So that's why we kept audio. And frankly, between the two, audio is most widely consumed format because you can actually be on the road and be listening, etc.
Yeah.
So that's why we kept to that format.
Okay.
But nonetheless, we are anyways introducing the video for the CTN, which is going to be the same interviews. We do virtual roundtables and webinars, which are anyway on video, but the podcast will also start coming out for video as conversations. And then that is the CTN YouTube channel you will see soon. Then Tricycle Way, when the platform launches, you will see its own YouTube channel. The third one, which is my own, which is under my brand, if you will. I have been writing posts on LinkedIn. I have been sharing, real stories, real anecdotes to make a point. It is not sermon. It is not someone who's telling things which they have not lived. So my goal is through this channel, I will take things which happen with me or around me with people who I may or may not name and share those stories and the lessons that I personally learned or what I think is a good lesson for all of us to take away and process it. Again, it is not to give you a recipe, it is for you to think what the real life teaches us, real small incidents that teach us, whether within our family or with our friend circle or even people in the professional circle. And this is another attempt for me to share my life, my vulnerabilities. And I think one of the traits of a leader, I'm a wannabe leader, let's put it that way. So I want to be vulnerable and I want to share my situations that I dealt with. And in that process, perhaps those lessons could help or touch a chord with someone, and that helps improve somebody's lives.
Got it.
So this particular channel will be about that. Real life stories, anecdotes,
Okay.
and let's see if how people receive it. And it's like this: you can try and you can submit to the world and let the world teach you how it's doing, and you continue to tweak it. I'm not coming in to become successful. I'm doing it because I want to help and I want to create impact.
Difference with the last channel you just mentioned is it's more of a narrative format instead of interview that like the
Yes,
other channel.
this will be me sharing. It may come up as interviews in due course, but initially, I would like to focus on, if anybody has gone to my LinkedIn and looked at my posts, they are about real life stories that I've lived,
Yep, I've seen that.
right? And I want to bring those in a format which hopefully, besides in writing, but in video, in short, like a 2, 3, 4 minute video, if I can narrate a story which gives them a point to ponder upon.
Got it.
And it's just a way for it to reach more people and perhaps a different format in which I'm telling stories.
Yeah, I think that's a great format to try, especially with the youth. The short videos seems to be more popular with them. So I think it's worth the sharing to have that wider
And in
reach.
fact, it is not just the youth. You'll be surprised how many people at our own age group. I'm like 53 right now. My own age group, a lot of people I talk to and I try coaching and helping, I see they have still reached there, but they are still drifting or they have lack of that fundamental clarity. I'm not saying I have it all. I also have my own issues.
Sure.
But when I listen to them, I feel that they are not learning from the life which is happening around them. And one of the ways I'm trying to bring this video out is essentially to have them start looking in their backyard in what happens in their day and how they learn how to process it and perhaps learn from them. Frankly, the best lessons come from the life we live. It's not from a book that you read always.
True.
But you have to learn how to watch for those signs and process it and see if you can get some insights that you can garner from them.
Right. Learning from others is always the best approach.
Absolutely.
Well, Sanjog, I thoroughly enjoyed the conversation. Thank you for your generosity in sharing your advices, opinion, thought, and input. Really appreciate it. I'm sure my audience also enjoyed the session. So thank you. And thanks to the audience for joining us today as well.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.